Okay. Uh-huh. Well, okay, thanks. Um, Trying to think. All right, let me see here. I do. Just well, but we're calling on. No, I don't. Not on this thing. There's no way you can just call me over the computer, Google Chat, GChat, or Skype, or oh,
He doesn't have sound.
okay. Let's do that. Yeah, I understand. My only concern is I don't know how to take a screenshot. You're basically seeing me as I am in the phone. Okay, just a sec. Oh, okay. Actually, you're getting plenty. Okay. It's sort of like that. Like, okay. Yes. hmm Okay. Yeah, I am. I'm recording. I have about 11 minutes of recording time. Okay. Name's Tom ACITELLI. I'm the author of The Audacity of Hops, The History of America's Craft Beer Revolution. And I got into beer as a lot of people got into beer. I enjoyed drinking it, and I enjoyed making it. I make it at home. But I got into the history of it as a journalist in New York. I was covering business, a lot of real estate in Wall Street for various publications, and I wanted to write a story about a business story that intersected with other business stories in the United States and other social phenomena in the United States. And craft beer does that. It's one of the most interesting business stories of the last 60 years, since World War II, basically. You have it intersecting with so many different varieties of the culture and the business world, whether it's restaurants, uh, the rest of the alcohol industry, including fine wine and craft spirits. You have an intersection with the television industry, with movies, with power politics at a state, local, and federal level. So I found that in telling this story, I was able to tell that business story that intersected with a whole bunch of different things. Plus, it had the added benefit of, again, being beer. So it was inherently interesting. So. Okay. Well, the Mayflower is an interesting case, right? So these religious fundamentalists are sailing from England by way of Holland to start a new life in the New World because they feel persecuted for their beliefs back in Old England. And they rent a boat, which was called the Mayflower, and they rent the crew of the Mayflower as well. They rent the labor. Now, they were trying to make it to Jamestown in Virginia, which was an old, by that standard, about a 100-year-old English settlement on the Virginian coast. The crew realizes it's about to run out of its beer, though. It will not have enough beer to go back to England. You see what I'm saying? Beer was not only fantastic to drink even then, 3.5 centuries ago, but it was also much cleaner and purer than the water they would be able to get on ship or even off ship. right? Because they didn't have necessary ways to sort of get rid of the salt water, and they didn't have ways to boil it safely. So they realized they're about to run out of beer, so they dropped the Pilgrims, they dropped the Puritans off in Massachusetts, in a random spot in Massachusetts, basically a beautiful bay area, which we know now is Boston Harbor, Massachusetts Bay, and hightail it back to England before their beer runs out. So the profound effect this has is one of the animating forces in the foundation of the country, the Pilgrims and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, starts where it starts. It doesn't start in Jamestown, Virginia. It doesn't start in the Tidewater region of the Mid-Atlantic. It starts in what came to be known as New England. Paul Revere, another major figure in American history, right? Everybody knows about his ride through Greater Boston in April of 1775 to warn the militia, the Minutemen, of impending invasion by the British. Not invasion necessarily, but sort of the Redcoats were out and looking to shoot to kill. Somebody had to warn the Minutemen. So who warns them? Paul Revere, who was known as a revolutionary at that time. He and his close friend Samuel Adams, who would become one of the first governors of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts post-independence, were known as big revolutionaries. Paul Revere was also known as a pretty hearty drinker, even by the standards of the time. He could be found at taverns in Boston drinking, right? He made pewter mugs. He was a silversmith too. So they chose him in part, and he chose himself because he sort of had what you would call liquid courage. He had the beer in him to hop on a horse, ride several miles through the dark countryside when he knew he could be shot on sight. Okay, yeah. I mean, you could trace the history of you could trace the origin of America to a beer run, essentially. Paul Revere would not have made his ride without the liquid courage that beer provided. Is that good? Okay. Okay. So the Mayflower essentially docked where it docked, and the origins of America are where the origins are because of a beer run. Jamestown, Virginia. Yeah, well, Plymouth Rock, yeah. Yeah, essentially they dropped them at Plymouth Rock so they could return to England with enough beer. So essentially the start of America traces itself to a beer run. How's that? Oh, shit. All right. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, the Pilgrims were headed to Jamestown, but they docked where they docked in Massachusetts because they were running out of beer, and the ship wanted to make a. Let me start over. I'll start over, Brett. Just a sec. Okay. The Pilgrims were headed to Jamestown, but they stopped in The Pilgrims were headed to. The Pilgrims were headed to Jamestown, Virginia, but they stopped in Massachusetts because they were running out of beer. Is that okay? Okay. Smile when I say it. All right. Okay, it's funny. All right. Okay, just a sec. So the Pilgrims were trying to make it to Jamestown, Virginia, but they stopped in Massachusetts because of a beer run, essentially. And that's where you get the start of America, a beer run. How's that? Okay. Okay. The Pilgrims stopped. The Pilgrims were headed to Jamestown, Virginia, but they stopped in Massachusetts essentially because they were running out of beer. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, I got you. The Mayflower was headed to Jamestown, Virginia, but they stopped early in Massachusetts to drop off the Pilgrims because they were running out of beer for the return trip to England. Smile through it? Okay, I thought I was. Like how why like okay, one more time. The Pilgrims the Mayflower was trying to make it to Jamestown, Virginia, but they stopped early in Massachusetts because they were running out of beer for the return trip back to England. Okay. I forgot what I said. Okay. Uh, well, Paul Revere, a big part of Paul Revere's ride was the liquid courage. He wouldn't have done it without beer in him. Is it good? Okay. 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 Uh, Paul Revere's ride through the Boston area in April 1775 to warn about the British was fueled by beer, essentially. He had liquid courage in him to make that ride when he knew he could be shot on sight. Okay. Brett, I don't think I'm taping anymore. Let me see here, just a second. I think so. Let me try again. We got 3 minutes. We got 3 minutes. We're good. Okay? I stopped it, but I'm recording now. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm trying to think of the context, though. Um, okay. The what? The redneck? The redneck form. Um, no, I don't think I would say redneck. I'm from North Carolina. Okay. Okay. Yeah, if you give me a question, I mean, if you give me a question, I can talk about it. I don't. Okay. The IPAs? Well, there's several theories about the origins of the IPA, right? And the IPA is sort of the regnant, prominent, most sought after and thirsted for beer type in American beer right now, and it's what American brewers are most known for. There are several theories. One is that a brewer in London named George Hodgson developed the IPA and was just a very savvy marketer. There's another that the British brewers at the time in the mid-19th century, mid-1800s, added a lot of hops to their beer because it was going to make the long journey around the Horn of Africa to India when India was a colony of the British. Hops not only make beer very bitter, they also preserve beer. The third theory is simply that there's always been a lot of hops in beer, and that's what people enjoy drinking, and that's why IPAs have grown to such prominence now. Yeah. Just a sec. I'm going to delete some stuff, see if I can make more room. I know. What the hell is this? Yeah. Okay. Obama and Washington. Well, okay, I'll talk about Washington and Obama. I hope this works. Okay. Well, George Washington famously brewed beer at Mount Vernon. The recipe for his beer, his what he called small beer, actually can be found at the New York Public Library in his handwriting. We wouldn't want to drink it today. You would not want it. It's mostly it calls for sort of like boiled down pumpkin rind. So we're talking about a very malty, sweet, pumpkiny beer. But Washington was very fond of beer. A lot of the founding fathers were, especially Ben Franklin. Now, fast forward about 200 and some years, and the first president to brew beer in the White House is Barack Obama. He and the First Lady brewed a honey ale for a Super Bowl party in February of 2011, and they used honey from the White House grounds. And this was sort of a gigantic stamp of officialdom on the growth of craft beer and micro brewing in the United States. To have a beer from the White House, I mean, my God, that's big. How's that? Yeah. Okay. Uh, of course, with Washington, in Washington's time, they didn't know about the role of yeast in brewing, okay? So it would have been an especially awful beer. Another example of that is the Belgian monks. The monks used to brew in Northern Europe, and they would, oh shoot, I just lost the recording. Sorry, I just lost the recording. Oh, all right. I don't think I'm going to have enough juice to do that again. Yeah. Let me see. Uh, no, there's just a room on my phone. I didn't know I'd be doing all the. Okay. Uh-huh. Let's see. Mhm. Okay, we'll do that one. Let me see if I have them. Okay. The monks into modern times, starting in the Middle Ages, used to brew a lot of beer in Northern Europe, particularly, and they did not know about the role of yeast back then as the fermentation agent in beer. So they would make the beer and then pray over it before they went to bed, ask God to bless their batch, and He invariably would. And they'd wake up the next morning and find the beer fermenting. So they thought it was a real act of God beer, and I would think a lot of people would agree with them. Um, as for women in craft beer, it actually goes back several decades, almost to the beginning in the 1960s, the origins of the American craft beer movement. There have always been women involved. Uh, they don't. They were marginalized at first, then ignored, and they're coming to very big prominence right now. Now, there are some barley wines that are so strong and so high in alcohol that they're simply called baby makers. And you can glean from that what you will. Okay. As far as love and beer, there are some strong barley wines that are simply called baby makers. Let me see here. Life. All right. All right. So, okay. So we want, what was the next thing? Sorry. Okay. Okay. You basically had the monks. They didn't know about the role of yeast. Okay, so they didn't know that yeast was causing the fermentation, or that would cause it. So they would make their batches, pray over them, and then go to bed. And lo and behold, God had blessed their batches and made beer. I thought how do you want, like a deranged smile, or? Uh-huh. Okay. Okay. Well, wait, I got to find more room on this phone. Uh, what's your email? Yeah, I'm going to send these videos and see if you get them, and then I can erase these videos. Uh, I don't know. How would I do? How do I even do that? Yeah, I can do that. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, I don't think I have time. Well, let's try to wrap up what we can. And okay. Uh huh. Hmm. Right. Okay. I'll try. I'll try, man. Okay. Let's give it a shot. Okay. Beer has been around for centuries, its animating force in civilization, and maybe even gave birth to civilization, because mankind stopped moving around and stopped being nomadic because it wanted to grow the grains to brew this wonderful drink. So beer is a core part of civilization, a core part of love and life, and beer. Any good? Okay. All right, well, what should I do next? Send these to you? Or ah, oh, okay. Well, yeah, I'll send them to you. Let me know, and maybe at that point I can erase some, and we can start over or do like one or whatever you think works. I got to get going in about 20 minutes, but I can do it right now. I think.
Did you guys hang up?